Well, as I say in the poem, once more into the breach. All right, so we begin now to actually get into the meat and potatoes of what this is all about, which is taking this engine and getting it back in running condition. We've had it in running condition. It is an engine I know that does work, but the problem we have with it right now is that it's been sitting for a little while. Cam thinks it's a good idea for us to go in and pull the plugs out of it and maybe even go in and change out the plug wires. We've got some plug wires on the way from National Parts Depot, but with all the shipping troubles that we're having around the world right now, the plug wires didn't get here, and it could have a lot to do with the fact that I ordered them Thursday and asked for them for Friday. So hopefully they'll be here today, but we're going to do this. I'm going to sit here and we're going to actually go through how long it takes to change the plugs on a 351 Cleveland. But before we get started with that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the plugs we're putting in here and why we're using those plugs. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do myself a disservice by starting to talk about things that I do. I do not run platinum plugs, iridium plugs on a basically stock vintage engine. And why is that? Because those engines really don't need them. Most of the time, whenever you're working on a classic car and you're playing around with it, you are not driving it enough to justify a platinum or an iridium plug. Those plugs are basically designed for greater longevity. A copper core plug is going to be just as good for what you need to do on a daily basis. Plus, oddly enough, it is actually a better conductor than the platinum or the iridium usually. So if you're going to do it and you're putting plugs in the car and it's something like a 351 Cleveland, you're going to want to put a standard copper plug in there. Now, what I will say is this, is you're going to start looking at heat range situations on your plugs. Now with the heat range, what is heat range? Well, heat range actually has to do with the amount of heat that the plug dissipates out into the block from it being fired off. A colder heat range plug is going to be better for high performance engines, things in the 10 and 11 compression ratio range. Those engines are going to see a lot more heat and you want them to dissipate more heat. Therefore, you want to go with a colder range plug. You almost never go to a hotter range plug in a stock engine configuration. You'll want to stay with whatever the factory recommended. Now, I have here in front of me the other side of the book that we talked about last week with the power windows, and that is your service manuals for your classic Ford or Chevrolet or whatever. But we're dealing with a 72 Mustang, so we have the 71 service manual. There's really not any difference. So what you're going to do is you're going to go in and find the section that talks about just that, the plugs. And right here we see 351 Cleveland 2V, and we go across here and we get to the plug, which is an ARF 42. Now, originally on a 72 Mustang, that would have been a Motorcraft plug. On a 71, it would have been an Autolite plug. And yes, I know far more about this than I should. If I knew this much about doing stock trading, I probably wouldn't be standing in front of you doing videos right now. All right, so what you're going to want to do is you look at that and you say, okay, it's an ARF 42. You'll take that and go out online and look for a plug that corresponds to that. Now, in the Autolite ranks, which Autolite is no longer a part of Ford, that's why they went to Motorcraft in 1972. On an Autolite plug, that's a Autolite Copper Core 25. Harder to get at the auto parts store. You can get platinum and iridium plugs all day long, but you're going to have to try to find them at the auto parts store and get them ordered in. Like today, I thought I could just go down to the auto parts store and pick them up. No, you can't do that. You have to order them in from the main store in the area, and they'll be here at lunch today. So we can't put plugs back in the engine until later in the afternoon, but that just goes to show you sometimes that's the way things work out. So you're going to be looking at a 32 to 36 gap with points. Now, one thing I'll say about that is on the Cleveland 1971 to 1974, you could have a single point distributor or you could have a dual point distributor, and it is somewhat of a mix-up on what you got. With a 4-speed, 99% of the time, you're going to have a dual point distributor in there with a dual diaphragm on it. If you have an automatic, most of those cars were single point. That's not to say that all of them were, because there were cars that were built on Mondays and Fridays, which corresponded to a hangover or getting ready to get out of there for the weekend. So there you go. Now, what I'm going to do is Cam and I are going to go in and we're going to go and see just how quickly we can get the plugs out of this engine and let you know how long it takes us to do it. And some tools that might be able to help you getting plugs out. Okay? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to talk about real quickly before I get started here is I am going to show you some tools. Now, this is a Harbor Freight Icon 3/8 drive with a swivel head and a nice fine action. I don't know if you can hear that. But that action right there is really nice. This one you can get down to get them at Harbor Freight here in the United States pretty readily. I don't know what you guys that are watching from overseas are going to do, but that's what we've got available here in the States. I'm going to be using this in combination with possibly a short extension. And I've got a 5/8 plug socket. This has got a rubber connector inside, or a rubber O-ring inside of it that you use will hold the plug in place. And then finally, if things get really, really pear-shaped, I'm going to go to a swivel head along with this swivel head, and you may or may not would hear some cussing working with this. But on that driver's side, this stuff can get to be really complicated. Another thing I'd tell you to recommend to do is when you're pulling the plug wires off of this thing is to always put some dielectric grease inside of the boot so that this plug wire comes off nice. I don't know if I did that last time when I did these, so this may get exciting. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Cam come in here. He is going to set up a timer for the old man to see if I've still got it.
It won't be a pistol start, so I'll just say go.
I don't want you to have a pistol in here. It could get holy.
Very quickly. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Go.
I should have had my hands on this, right?
Off to a lackluster.
Already in the hole. All right, I'm going to go in here and try to pull this boot off. It did spin, that's good. Now these are, I believe, copper plugs. And I'm going to have to put an extension on it because the problem you run into, the more accessories you have on an engine, the more or less, woo, hello, sorry Cam, I zapped it. Guess I'll have to buy Cam another one of these now because I marked it up for him. All right, here we go. That's not too bad. That's number one. Now it's going to get sticky. A lot of times the boots are the hardest part. That's why you put a fender cover on. He's a little rich. I actually have motorcrafts in there before. And number 3 is going to be kind of a pain. 3 is only a pain on this engine because I have the engine lift hooks on here. All that contoursy stuff. Say right now, were this a 70 Mach 1, it'd be a lot harder. Rich. I must have put Out. And Rich. Time?
405.
Not too bad. So 405 on the passenger side. Now I'm going to do the driver's side. It's probably going to take longer. All right, ready? Go. Literally on this side, everything is right in the way. It's like Will Smith. I got to get me one of these.
I thought you were about to say you were going to smack it.
No. I'm going to his movie roles. I'm not going to his personal life. That's rich. Well, that would have made a problem right there. That plug wire wasn't even on. So it would have been running funny no matter what. This is also one of the fun ones because it's the engine lift hook. There is absolutely nowhere to put my hands on. This plug's right. Oops. Are we going to count if I drop something? That should count.
Talking like a...
Anything. Plug, wrench, socket,
Give you
whatever.
2 seconds on the time.
Thank goodness I put the dielectric grease on these boots. I think when I bought these originally, these are the Kevin Marty wires, which have a, they use the original style rubber. Five. Which, let me guess, I bet number 8 is going to be which? There we go. That's a good time. Welcome to the plug you almost can't even see. Rich, out!
423. Not bad.
Still got it. All right, well, I mean, we're going to take these and go over to the tabletop, and I'm going to talk about a couple things with Cam. And he's going to argue with me about some things as well. So away we go.
So Jeff, how do you think you did this round?
Well, I was a little slow out of the gate there. Some of these competitors out here today, they're really tough. My change-outs were a little slow in the first round, but I think that second round I finally got back in my groove. I think I'm on my way back.
Good socket change speed.
Good socket changes. I didn't lose a spark plug down into the chassis somewhere. So I think all in all, we did a really good thing this round.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you have good luck in the next one.
Yes. All right, so here they are. So we got 1 through 4 and 5 through 8. And every one of these plugs is rich.
That never happens on a 351 Cleveland.
With a 4300D carburetor. Yeah. I need to probably go in and get with one of the guys probably at Allstate Carburetor, get some of the Motorcraft jets, the bigger jets for this stuff, so that we can jet that carburetor down just a little leaner. I was running it fat originally because I didn't want to run it lean, breaking it in.
Yeah.
We're at that point now. We need to change that out. Now I want to show a couple of things here. Now what you may see is I've got a stripe on some of these plugs. It's worn off on a couple of them, but there's a stripe on these plugs. What's that for? Well, I wanted to get it so that the strap, we tried to take these plugs and set them up so that the strap was pointing down. If the stripe was pointing up, we would try to pull that plug to a different location. You can also get shims to put on here to help you do that. Do I think that makes any difference whatsoever?
Not on this engine.
Not on this engine. It doesn't really matter.
High performance, top drag,
yes.
1,000, 2,000 horsepower.
It's not, this is
2% of power.
It's pointless. It's pointless.
Yeah.
But these are Motorcraft, so I am kind of tempted to take these to clean them up. We'll run the Autolites for right now to get the engine driving and running, taking it down the road and seeing how she goes, and then we may move back to these Motorcrafts because they're still in good shape. These plugs, there's nothing wrong with them other than they just need to be cleaned up. They can be put right back into play. Harbor Freight has a tool I'm showing you right now for cleaning spark plugs. Works really well. It's basically a bead blast type system. I guess it's a metal.
Yeah, it's just media blasting.
It media blasts the plug
to the porcelain.
Yeah, it does the all the way up to the porcelain. Cleans the plugs up. You can put them back in the car, and bada bing, you're on your way down the road. So we're running rich, so we need to go in and do some stuff. But that's going to be something I want to do after we get a couple other things done today, which we need to get the oil changed in it. I want to check the coolant to make sure the coolant is in okay shape. Just looking at it from the top, we may even just go ahead and bite the bullet and later today off camera flush the coolant out of it, and then when we run it in, run some coolant to clean it out a little bit. So that's probably going to have to happen sooner than later. I'd rather not get the radiator redone, but we're going to look at the possibility of having to get the radiator done. I've got a couple places guys have recommended to me, so if that's going to work, we'll do it. But now we have to just wait till the plugs come in, because that didn't take as long as I thought it would.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad for an old man. I'd forgotten I had to use the short extension. But anyway, we're going to move on to changing out the oil. I'm going to talk about why I'm using what I'm using. All right, so while Cam is in here changing the oil on this, I'm going to go over a couple things about the 351 Cleveland and the 71 to 73 Mustang. Now, they had two 351s for this car. Initially, in 1971, they had three. They had the 351 4V, they had the 351 Boss, and they had the 351 Cobra Jet about mid-year. Now, the Cobra Jet's kind of interesting because unlike the 4V, it got some special parts kind of pulled from the Boss 351 ranks. For instance, the bell housing on it is a cast iron bell housing. As I've said before, the distributors were usually a dual point distributor. Another thing about them is they had a baffle in the oil pan, and most of the Cobra Jets that I've seen, not all of them, but some of them that I've seen, I should say some, that will get the guys that are going to tell me why I'm wrong about it, a lot of them have 4-bolt main blocks. So it is a more special engine, but it is also a low compression engine. This has not got the same cylinder heads as the regular 4V M code in 71. The Q code's got the low compression, unleaded fuel cylinder heads that they went on and went through all the way through 1974 on this particular engine. And as time went on, the Cobra Jet got less and less. 1973, they saw a smaller valve size, but that didn't really change the mammoth ports. Honestly, if Ford had been really smart about this engine, they probably would have gone in and made these a 383 or a 390 and just dumped the 390 altogether. But those engines were going really well in a lot of other applications, and Ford didn't want to change that. So we got stuck with a smaller displacement that really needed to be a bigger displacement in like a 383 or 390. They could have even made a 429, but that would have been really confusing. All right, so Cam just pointed this out to me. We have a little bit of metallic in the oil. He thinks maybe we left the break-in oil. Honestly, it's 20 years ago. I don't remember. But unfortunately, we did find a small piece of metal inside of the engine or inside of the oil when it was coming out. It was actually, was it stuck on the end of the...
Yeah, it was on the drain plug.
On the drain plug. If you can get a magnetic drain plug for one of these things, it's probably not a bad idea. Your oil filter should take care of anything that would try to go through your screen and then your oil filter. But that just goes to show you that you should probably change your motor oil whenever you're doing this after you've done your initial run and break-in. That's hardened too, so I don't know what that could be. It's not like a regular sheet metal piece. And we're going to let this oil drain out, and we're going to go get some lunch. But what I wanted to talk about before we do that, our camera crew's so excited right now. What I wanted to talk about before we go out to lunch today is the type of oil that we're putting back in here. Now, we are putting the Rotella T4 in this car. Now, you might wonder why I'm doing a diesel oil in a classic car. And that's because the additive packages in the Rotella T4 and some of the other diesel type oils are actually better for a classic engine, especially the flat tappet cams, because the stuff that they put in there are better at keeping that cam lubricated than modern day oils, because almost everything now runs a roller cam. Now this car does have a roller cam in it, but I'm still going to want to go ahead and put the Rotella in there for now. Next oil change, I may or may not go to a full synthetic in this car. I don't know. Depends on what the oil looks like when we change it again. But this stuff smells so gassy that it's a good thing that we're going in and changing it now, and we're going to have to do some carburetor work on this thing, probably with our friends at Allstate, get some parts on the way, and run through it and see if we can make this carburetor run a little bit leaner than it is right now. Okay, off to lunch. All right, while Cam is back here putting the oil in the car, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of neat things on the 351 Cleveland and the Cobra Jet and Boss 351 varieties. The Cobra Jet and the 4V apparently and the Boss 351 all got baffled oil pans, but they were also a 6-quart fill, so you got more oil with the Boss 351 and the 351 4V and the 351 Cobra Jet. So when you're doing these, make sure you set your fill up correctly. Otherwise, you might not get enough oil in them if you've got a 4V, 351 Cleveland, Cobra Jet, or the Boss 351. He's putting oil in it now. Remember, it's not a diesel.
All of it.
Put it all in.
What is oil aeration? It doesn't exist in my world.
It's got a windage tray on it anyway.
Yeah. Let that sit for a bit and we'll check.
Yep, now in this car we put a windage tray in it when we built it. It has a roller cam, which I cannot remember the specs. In doing this cam, what I did when I ordered it was I told the guys at Comp Cams when we did it, and it's a roller, that I wanted it to sound like the drum intro for Hot for Teacher from Van Halen. You'll have to go out and listen to that elsewhere because we can't play it here. If we do, we get in all kind of copyright trouble. So we're not going to play it for you, but just go look up Van Halen's Hot for Teacher. The drum intro on that is what we based the cam sound on this off of. We're just about done with putting the oil off in this thing, so we'll see if we've got the right measure on it, and if we do, we're good to go, except for we can't get our plugs yet today because the guys at the auto parts store Didn't have them when we went at lunch like they said they would. So we're not going to put the plugs back in it today, but I mean, let's face it, you saw me take them out. You saw how fast I was taking them out. I'm almost that fast putting them back in. You dare me?
I dare you. Make sure it's not in gear.
We'll just kill Jameson. One less mouth to feed.
Or your doors.
Well, more importantly, I'd kill that Camaro over there.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, the lovely buzzer. I forgot about that. Well, we got rotation.
Yeah.
You think I ought to go ahead and run it through a rotation just to pull some oil up? Or not?
I probably wouldn't because there's still fuel in the tank and that diaphragm pump may start pulling.
Yeah, but it's not hooked up. I got a clamp on it.
Hey, it's your engine, babe. Also,
I'm doing it! That should probably be enough to pull some oil up, right?
should be, yeah.
All right. All right, man. I think we've done everything we can do. I've got to go get my pump setup pulled together to pull the gasoline out of the tank.
Yep.
And next week, we should be able to maybe not go for a full drive, but at least get her out on the...
Not on these tires. Maybe down the driveway. Very slowly.
These tires are old, too.
Yes, they are. They are probably...
We got kids here that aren't as old as these tires.
I was going to say, they're probably my vintage.
They're the same age as Cam, 29
Probably.
years old. 27 years. How old are you?
I
I don't remember.
I'm 28. I'm 96 model.
You're 96 model, yeah. Yeah. They're actually younger than you by a wee bit.
Yeah.
All right, then. Let's close this bad boy out. Well, there you go, man.
Yep.
We have officially got it to roll over. So it's going to roll over nice. You know, one thing I didn't think about, and I did think about it after we finished up, and you even mentioned it, was that the spark plugs were all still hooked up.
Yeah.
I forgot to take the coil wire off.
I went to grab it, but you started cranking it again, and angry spaghetti. I've been zapped by that before, not doing it.
It's not so bad. It's only 12 volts.
Yeah. At the
I wonder
coil.
what the amperage is.
It's milliamps, but it's like 30,000 volts coming out of the distributor. Yeah.
I'd have paid a lot to watch you jump around with that.
Yeah, me too. Paid somebody else.
Hey, Nolan.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's our show for this week. Next week, we're coming back with starting this thing up and possibly driving it around the yard. If I can wrangle up some tires between here and there, I might do that. I might even pull the wheels and tires off of the wagon to put on this so we can take a look at how that's going to look for the future. Because that's actually the direction we're thinking about going. Let me know in the comments below, do you want us to go back with the traditional steel magnums and pay $4 billion for a set of tires? Or would you rather see us go with the 17-inch wheels? I know, Rick Schmidt's going to write in and say, socks on a chicken. It looks like socks on a chicken. Boy, that's a good-looking chicken. I like those 17-inch magnums from...
And it's really hard to catch chicken. It swerves really good.
It swerves much better. It's not the rim going this way, the tire going... Huh?
3 business days later, you just decide to turn.
I think this thing would actually handle pretty nice with 17s
Yeah.
and low profiles on it. I really
Yeah, it
do.
would.
So let us know what you want to see on that. If you want to see us do the 17s to see how that looks on these cars, or do you want us to go back with the original steel magnums and the BF Goodrich TA radials that everybody's been running for 150 years now. Do me a favor, be kind to each other, love each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Autorestomod.
Yeah, we always do different arms.
I know. This is my right. I do this one. I almost always point with my right. It's almost always. I tell you what, if the plugs had come in today, like I wanted them to,
We'd probably have it running.
I would have made it run. I wouldn't have been able to stand it. I'd have had to put some fuel in it and hear it go blump, 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 blump for a minute.
Fuel down the throat and she'd run.
I was so close. I really wanted to. But we got to save something for next week. Yeah. And so I want to get that thing, do the thing with the driving on. We'll take it out and go.
Thank the parts stores.
If you want to write into me and tell me how much it sucks that the parts store didn't get us our parts in time, fire away. Right down there in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Also, like and subscribe. And also, click the bell for notifications. All these people are subscribing. None of you bums are watching on a regular basis. If we had 10%, we'd be in so much better shape with our YouTube algorithms. The aggravating rhythms of YouTube. All right, buddy, let's go get a beer.